Welcome, everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to create intervals for data sets based on the amount of data and frequency of values, and how to create a frequency table for a set of data. How are we learning it? Through the Frequency Tables Part 2 notes and the Frequency Tables Part 2 assignment. When can we use this information? To predict the likelihood of certain events occurring by applying the existing frequency of the event to future predictions. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the Frequency Tables Part 2 assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will begin by going over the learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. Once you've completed your Get It Started, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. After that, we'll go over the Frequency Tables Part 2 notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the Frequency Tables Part 2 assignment on Desmos. Once you've completed the assignment, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your Before You Go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the Statistics Study Guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the Frequency Tables Part 2 notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. How do we organize data? Well, first thing you need to do is collect your data. So get the data in. So always when you collect your data, arrange it from least to greatest. So whatever values you get, make sure that you put them in order from least to greatest. This will allow you to draw conclusions more easily. Then use your data to draw your conclusions. Now let's take a look at frequency tables. Frequency tables show how many values in the data set fall within a particular interval. So intervals are small sets that are created within the data set. Okay, notice that when we create a frequency table, all the intervals must be the same size. So we can't have an interval that goes from 0 to 10 and then from 11 to 55. Okay, that doesn't work. So this is what a frequency table looks like. So we have an interval here, right? So obviously our data set goes from at least 40 to 74. So that's a pretty big span. So we break it up into smaller parts so we can see. So from 40 to 44, there were 2 data points that fell within that range. Then from 45 to 49, there were 4 that fell within that range, and so on. So we can calculate how many fell into each range. So let's take a look at an example of this. So we have a table here. This represents all of the shows on ABC. And first thing we're going to do is put them in order from least to greatest. And we're going to go by this demographic here. So we put these all in order from least to greatest. And this is them in order. So now we can break these up into intervals. So if we look, how many data points fall between 0.4 and 0.59? Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now notice I did include the 0.59 because it was included in the interval. So there's 8 that fall into that frequency. Then we have from 0.6 to 0.79. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that fall into that one. Then here we have from 0.8 to 0.99, we have 1, 2. Then we have from 1 to 1.19, we have 1, 2, 3. And then from 1.2 to 1.39, we have 1. So this is how you would create a frequency table. Let's look at another example. So again, we look at the win totals here, and we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So we have 15, 19, 26, 27, and so on. So we put these in order. And then once we have them in order, we can now create a frequency table here. So how many fall between 10 and 19? Well, there's 1, 2. From 20 to 29, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From 30 to 39, there's just 1. And then from 40 to 49, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would be our frequency table for the Western Conference. Now let's look at the weather for San Bernardino. So we have our high temperatures here. So we put these in order. So there's our data for the temperatures. Now we can go ahead and put these in intervals. So From here, we can say how many fall between 70 and 75. Well, 1, 2 fall between there. Between 76 and 80, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Between 81 and 85, there's 1, 2, 3. And then between 86 and 90, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is how you complete a frequency table. Now, please note that when you're creating these frequency tables, there's a couple things that are required. Number one is we can't have too many of these be 0. So there can be an empty space. If there's like a gap in the data, there can be an empty space, but there can't be a lot of empty spaces. The other thing is the intervals all need to be the same size, and there needs to be at least 4 intervals.
Let's talk now about how to sign in to Desmos to complete your work. So what we're going to do is you're going to click on the link to go to the assignment, and it should take you to a page that looks kind of like this. And right here where it says sign in with Google, we're going to click there. And it's going to pop up with our email accounts. You're going to click on your school email account, and it should already have you logged in because you should have already been logged in using Google Classroom. From there, I'm just going to click start the activity, and it will take me into the assignment and allow me to begin. So that's how you will log in to Desmos using Google.
Let's take a look now at the frequency tables part 2 assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If we scroll down, there's a link here to take you to the Desmos activity. Go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. We'll go ahead and click start the activity. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. We'll go ahead and click next. Now it says which of the frequency tables on the right is set up correctly. Well, we can see that this one is not set up correctly because it doesn't have at least 4 intervals. So A is not the correct answer. Now B has 5 intervals. The problem is 3 of them are completely empty, and it's the 3 before the data even begins. So this one's not set up correctly either. Then this one has 4 intervals with data, so that one could work. That C looks good. And then let's look at D. D has 4 intervals, and that looks good as well. But now we need to check to make sure that all the intervals are the same size. Well, this one goes from 1 to 5 and then 6 to 15. So this has a difference of 10 and this has a difference of 5. So that doesn't work. So D is wrong. It's going to be table C. So we go ahead and mark that as our answer. Then we're going to state why each of these is not correct. So we discussed why they weren't correct, so you'll go ahead and fill that in. Then we'll click next. Now for this one, we're going to fill in the table. So looking at the interval 1 to 3, what's the frequency? So we can see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we type 5. Notice it tells us that it's correct. If we put something that's wrong, it will stay with an X. So we do this until we get the correct frequency. And you'll do that for each of these. So you'll fill in your table and then click next. Do it again for this one. And you'll continue to do that for each of these frequency tables. Then on slide 8, there's a frequency table that represents a coin that was flipped for 12 students. And they recorded how many times it came up heads. So if you joined the other 12 students and completed the task exactly as they did, how many times would you expect the coin to show heads? So what we're saying is, which one has the highest frequency? Well, 4 to 6 is the highest frequency, so that's what we would expect it to be. Now, it may not be, but that's what we would expect it to be. So it says, fill in the table to rank the most likely outcomes. So the most likely is here. So we rank that as number 1. Then the next most likely is 10 to 12. So we rank that number 2, and so on. So you'll fill that out. And then we'll click next. Now we'll do the same thing. This one is for 20 students. It said if you join the 20 students, what is the odds that you think that it would occur being heads? Well, we can see that these two have the same frequency, so we can expect it to be either of these. So this one and this one. And then you're going to go ahead and rank them. So this would be 1, and this would also be 1. And then after that, we'd have 2 and 3. So this is 2 and 3. And then when you're done with this activity, you'll go ahead and go back to your Google form and click next. This will take you to your before you go. Go ahead and fill out your before you go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.